Hello, I'm Tom Dauben. I'm a Senior Advisor in Flood and Coastal Risk Management at the Environment Agency, and I'm here to talk to you about the Dartmoor Headwaters Natural Flood Management Pilot Project. I'll quickly talk you through where the NFM pilot on Dartmoor came from, why we chose Dartmoor itself as the project to focus on, what solutions we've utilised on the moor, and then quick discussion about next steps and a shameless plug for some NFM tools that the agency's created locally in Devon and Cornwall, which you can use for your own projects elsewhere. For those of you that want a little bit more background on the Headwaters project itself, I've included a link to the Dartmoor National Park Authority webpage where we have some information on the project, videos of some of our leaky dams during a flood event, and our newsletters. So where did the project on Dartmoor come from? Well, the agency allocated £15 million nationally in 2018 to the locations shown on the map on the left-hand side. As you'll see, we have a few in Devon. Dartmoor is the red dot, number 5, pretty much the most southwesterly project in the country. The programme's aims were primarily to reduce risk to residential properties, to use nature-based solutions to do that, and to learn how to deliver both the greatest multiple benefits, not just habitat biodiversity, but also any other potential additional benefit to flood risk possible, and to contribute to the kind of national knowledge base of these solutions, make sure that we build a more robust list of case studies, knowledge base of how to do these techniques, any pros and cons of certain things, learn about delivery and so on. And it was all intended to be delivered in a partnership way, more partners involved than traditionally building a flood wall, purely by the nature of working in a bigger area, but to do it in a collaborative way, embracing people that have already been doing some of these pieces of work, as I'm sure many of you at the meeting will have done, and to try and do it in a collaborative way. The main one that we wanted to adopt as well at a local level, although it's been spoken about nationally too, is to try and use it to inform the Devon and Cornwall investment programme for 2021 to 2027. So why did we choose Dartmoor? Well, if anybody looks at a map of the rivers in Devon, you'll see that quite a few of them originate either on Exmoor or Dartmoor, and the ones that come on off the moor from Dartmoor actually tend to have a wider ring of communities at risk of flooding around them more immediately than Exmoor does. If you look at that a little bit further, there's around 20,000 properties all the way from the north coast to the south coast of Devon, which have a flood risk that originates on Dartmoor itself. To the bottom right-hand side of this slide, you can see a whole host of different flood events that we've captured, which have occurred on the moor. The ones that are highlighted in red have multiple incidences of flooding in a single year. You can see that they're becoming a little bit more common. That's partly due to climate change and the impacts of weather patterns, but also our ability to capture and record flood events has improved over the time it's there. The locations that we've worked in are highlighted in red on the map. They've been chosen because they're predominantly representative of any future catchments that we'd like to work in on the moor. So they've been a really good test bed to enable us to understand the variety of techniques that we could use. None of what we've done would have been possible without the partners that we've worked with. There's been some fantastic partnership working, so thank you to anyone at the meeting that's been involved with that. Key to that has been the National Park Authority, so we've built up a small team within the National Park Authority to do the delivery work, and we also work with the team at WRT, DWT, and many of the other organisations to deliver some of the solutions that we've been working on as part of the project. So in terms of things that we've installed, we've got, I think, slightly over 350 leaky dams now on conclusion of the pilot, installed from a host of different materials. As you'll see in the photos, we've got some dry stone wall ones, we've got piled stone rubble, we've got boulders, we have planed and felled timber, we also have some sheep's fleece ones, which are a little bit of a departure from the norm, and we have some willow installations, which we're hoping will start to sprout, to grow, and hopefully become stronger and more robust rather than deteriorating like many of the others will. Hopefully those will start to strengthen over time and grow. We've contributed to 75 hectares of peatland restoration through the South West Peat Partnership. Many of you, I'm sure, will know how sensitive a subject trees are for Dartmoor, and we've managed to plant over 6,000 of them, which isn't a huge number, But when you consider that we managed to get even some of those on the common, I think is a really good outcome in a very short-term project. We've installed some riparian buffer strips as part of the scheme. We've also done some bunded wet woodland to explore how you deliver the solution to deliver wet woodland, not just planting, but also looking at planting coupled with flood storage. We've restored around 700 metres of river using stage 0, so taking the watercourse back to its natural state. And we've carried out a bit of regulatory activity as well. We've looked at the stock densities on the moor and tried to work with Natural England around those to reduce them where there's sensitive runoff pathways. And we've also become a consultee on swaling plans, trying to influence where the burns take place and trying to remove some of the more vulnerable areas from sort of more forthcoming rotations of swaling, try and allow them to scrub up and increase in roughness. We've created a machinery ring, so we've had about, I think, 11 square kilometres of catchment with the opportunity to have a soil slitter operated free of charge as part of the project. And we funded a woodland PhD at Plymouth University, so that's been looking primarily at the woodland hydrology of the moor and comparing unimpacted woodland with grazed woodland pasture, and how the runoff generated by those different land uses differs. I guess being the Tamar Catchment Partnership, you'll be mostly interested in the work that we've done at Walkhampton with West Country Rivers Trust. There's a really good report which summarises a lot of the work WRT have done very well, but I just thought I'd pull out some slides from the graphs of the modelling that's been done by them to show the benefits. I'm sure many of you are familiar with a flood hydrograph, so I won't talk you through how to read it. There's probably not enough time to go into oodles of detail. But if you look at the dashed lines and the solid lines of the various colours on the various graphs, you can see that each one is slightly smaller. Now what that means is that's basically each feature in each different flood event is reducing the scale of the flood. And if you think about extrapolating that out across the catchment, it proves the concept that we've all believed to be true, that a lot of these features added up into the tens, hundreds, or what have you across a catchment can make a significant impact. The table at the bottom shows you just the stone dams on their own that have been installed make somewhere between a 2% and a 19% impact in the size of a flood. So in terms of next steps, I'm pleased to say that although the pilot concluded in March this year, we've managed to secure a further 6 years worth of funding, with the potential for another 6 beyond that to continue doing natural flood management work on Dartmoor. We're hoping to expand into many other locations across the moor so we can focus way beyond the areas I highlighted on the map earlier. To unlock that money though, we have to do another business case for the project, which will take us a few months to do. To do that, we need to look at catchment prioritisation. We'll be looking at where other activities are taking place on the moor, things like biodiversity net gain delivery, carbon offsetting, nature recovery networks, and so on. And we'll be looking at the future agricultural payment system. So on the right, there's a quick snapshot of a natural flood management prioritisation map, which has been developed by the agency for DEFRA to look at ELMS funding. Now, we're really keen to try and build that into our project model so that we can look at capital funding from our project to provide money to install solutions, but that funding and that prioritisation method giving farmers an incentive to sign up and to keep it and have a revenue stream to continue the life of those installations. All of that will be done on the basis of looking at whether there's an infiltration dominated catchment or an attenuation dominated catchment, looking at the soil type. So there's a good piece of work there that takes us quite a while to go through for analysing the data for wider areas of Dartmoor. There's a key link with the Flood and Coastal Resilience Innovation Project. This is looking across Devon at a variety of new innovative solutions to flood risk management. And for Dartmoor, we've managed to secure a part of that pot funding to do some work with local academic institutions to increase the monitoring that we're able to do on NFM on Dartmoor. Unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of our installations were delayed and most of them got delivered in the last 18 months of the pilot. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity to plan monitoring and install it before the pilot concluded. Now that we have the luxury of at least another 6 years, pleased to say that we're going to look at upscaling our monitoring greatly to prove the benefit of the work that we've been doing. To do our business case, we'd really like input from partners, so really keen to hear from any of you that would like to do work on or around Dartmoor, what it is, whether you think it could interact with our project, if you feel there's an opportunity for us to collaborate, or indeed if you feel there are any issues or concerns that you have about us doing more of this. Really keen to hear from you. So we're hoping to organise a workshop at some point over the course of the winter or early into 2022 to have those discussions, but don't wait until then to get in touch. Really keen to have conversations to see what we could do next. Whilst I'm here, I just thought I'd make a quick plug for some tools that we've created within the area to help identify and prioritise natural flood management projects. On the left-hand side, you can see that there's an element of this tool which can be used strategically to find the best catchments to deliver NFM. It can show you how easy or difficult it would be to do that based on land use, presence or absence of designated sites, and a whole host of other information. But it can also show you where you can store the majority of water, which catchments have the higher capacity to hold water back and which ones have a lower capacity. You can move that on to look at the field scale. So we've got 262 catchments worth of data covered in this across Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. We have around 8 million fields worth of information, which can then help you look at which is the best solution for an individual field. It ranges all the way from soils improvements through tree planting, leaky dams, all the way up to floodplain reconnection. When you've played with those two to work out where you'd like to do something, what options are best, you can see what impact it would have in terms of natural capital. But you can also take data from the statistics on the right-hand side of those screens, plug it into a hydrological calculator, and that will show you the difference that could be made from a 1 in 2 flood event all the way up to 1 in 100. It's freely available, it's free of intellectual property, and you can access it on the link on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. So that's a really quick overview of quite a complex and hopefully quite a interesting project. Really keen to have conversations about what we could do next, and I just thought I'd put on the slide there a little reminder as to where it came from and why we're doing it. Primary focus is to look at reduction in risk to residential properties, but I'm really keen to try and make that not just about building engineered defences and more about a whole host of different solutions in the upper catchment as well. Do please get in touch if you have any questions or concerns, and thanks for listening.